So first, I just want to outline the context of where the United States and China currently find themselves in terms of relations, very briefly, and then talk about my trip in July of 2023 to China, which was my second time traveling to the mainland. So to begin, right now, how I see it in terms of US-China relations is I've been calling it a kind of faux rapprochement or fake diplomacy period, where the United States, because of numerous quagmires that it finds itself that were outlined in prior talks by Sarah Flounders and others, for example, Ukraine, where the United States and NATO find themselves in a war of attrition that they cannot win, or in the onslaught and genocide in Gaza, where the United States finds themselves completely paralyzed and totally motivated to enable what is one of the biggest human catastrophes in recent human history, and which could very well leak into and already really is turning into a regional and, of course, global war. And all of these conflicts, whether we're talking about Gaza, whether we're talking about Ukraine, or whether we're talking about the Asia Pacific and the US new Cold War on China, all of them have the potential to become major global conflicts of a scale that we have not witnessed prior. So, the United States, because it is in a very delicate position, a very fragile position, it's in a period of decline. It is an empire that is not rising anymore. It is falling. And this is seen in the economic realm, where its capitalist system is overrun by a myriad of contradictions and has actually turned its economy primarily into a weapon of war, which cannot be sustained given the correlation of forces around the world. Then, of course, you have the military quagmires and the political crises, a crisis of legitimacy at home, where both political parties are increasingly finding themselves more and more unpopular with the general population. And of course, the military wars around the world, which have become a stain on the image of American exceptionalism, showing just how criminal the empire really is. So there's myriad of crises going on, and the United States has had to back off over the last 6 to 12 months. The United States has attempted to play the role of a kind of diplomatic aggressor, where you've had numerous visits from political officials. When I was in China, Janet Yellen actually was making, I believe it was her first or second time to China over the last couple of years. And at the same time, the United States had issued a travel warning to all Americans, saying that because China is supposedly wantonly and arbitrarily arresting people, that China is a dangerous place to travel. This has been the game of the Biden administration, to increase and escalate all the war maneuvers that the prior administrations from Obama to Trump had established, whether it's sanctions or military encirclement, while now needing to play a role of kind of a diplomatic aggressor because of the United States' fragile position in the world. And this confusion is reflected, and this contradiction is reflected in the general situation in the United States. A recent poll came out showing that about 75% of US adults really see China and Taiwan, for example, this conflict that the United States is instigating between China and its province of Taiwan, as important to US national interests. And you would think, okay, well, many Americans see, for example, Gaza is very important to the United States, to themselves, because there's a direct connection. However, I would caution to say that this number probably more so reflects prior polls that show that there's a huge decline in public opinion toward China in the United States and the collective West, and that this reflects that there is a significant population that does view this conflict that the United States is instigating as existential, meaning meaningful to them, and not in the ways that we would like them to view it. We want people to view this conflict as meaningful. We don't want them to view this as somehow connected to their own vested interests. On the contrary, the vast majority of people in the United States and the collective West have nothing to gain but utter and total destruction from a war with China. But this is the point of people to people exchanges, is that there needs to be a front people willing to travel to places like China, Russia, all the so-called adversaries of the United States, and tell the truth about them and to build real relationships. And so that's how I see people-to-people exchanges. I see them as important for not just countering the US-led war drive with China, but also in building and developing a better world, one that is characterized by multipolarity, sovereignty, and mutual cooperation, rather than the unipolar domination and empire that the United States forwards as a dying hegemon. When I was in China in July 2023, I participated in the third dialogue on exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations, which was kind of a breakthrough conference to discuss the new global civilization initiative outlined by Xi Jinping earlier that year. And it really is a roadmap for how to not just develop, because there's a global development initiative, a global security initiative, but the global civilization initiative is all about how to bridge differences among cultures, how to respect differences among people, how to understand the different national and cultural realities of people around the world, while also developing a common bond toward a better life, a better world, and a more peaceful and democratic world. And so I participated in that conference, and it was quite clear that the global south is really where China finds not just its friends, but also its focus. Its focus in terms of what is the future of the world order? Is it a dying Western empire that's led by the United States, which it has at its core a peak interest in containing China's rise? No. China will forever, as long as the Communist Party of China is in leadership, will forever view the United States and Europe as potential partners and as countries they do not want antagonism with. But the focus where there's real solidarity, where there's real friendship being built is in the global south. And that's why the vast majority of the over 100 plus, I believe it was hundreds, that participated in this conference were from Africa. They're from South America. They were from Asia. The vast majority were from the global south. And during this trip, I was able to make my second trip to Gansu province and see, even in just this short period, how so much progress has been made in what was once one of the poorest provinces in China and still remains one of the poorest provinces in China in terms of relative development. Uh, I was there in 2019 in the city of Dunhuang. And in that city, there already has been so much development around its history with the Silk Road, bridging culture, bridging the diverse and multi-ethnic community that exists in this province in order to develop the economy here and ensure that people have a better standard of living. I was able to go to the new theater. It was a huge national theater built there in order to watch what was a beautiful performance on the Silk Road by dancers and singers who were disabled physically by blindness and by hearing impairment. And that was just an incredible performance. And it showed that in just a few years, from 2019 to 2023, there had been a rapid infrastructure development. The city center in Dunhuang was just incredible to see how everything was new. That's what China is focused on at the moment. It is focused on its internal development, and it's also focused on how to build a democratic and more prosperous world order that is mutual, that is defined by multipolarity. So it's internal development, its attention to the poorest, to the most underdeveloped within China is not exported, but is reflected in a foreign policy as well that is all about establishing peaceful relations and peaceful development. And so that's what you get when you go to China. You get a scenario, you get a situation where, as Sarah Flanders said, you don't meet cynical people. You meet people who are confident, who want to talk not about war. I had very few conversations about China's rise as a new global power or superpower. Most Chinese, and including the leadership, don't think about politics in this way. But there was quite a lot of curiosity about why the United States is on this war rampage with China, why it seeks a counterproductive policy of aggression toward China. So there's a lot of curiosity, but there's also a lot of desire for deeper friendship. So people-to-people exchanges are incredibly important. It's incredibly important to see the progress that has been made in countries like China. It's incredibly important to make real connections with people as well as establish channels within China in order to show and demonstrate what it really truly means to be an ambassador for peace, to be an activist for peace, to be someone, whether you're an organization or an individual, who truly wants to see a better world. It is not just about opposing war, that is incredibly important, opposing empire, but it's also about building a foundation for how we can participate in this emerging multipolar world, how we can ensure that this dying empire doesn't just go out with a destructive bang, but that what comes after it truly does have the assistance and solidarity of those people who have, unfortunately, like those in the collective West in the United States, have been dragged into war after war after war in their name. So it was an incredible trip, and I cannot wait to go back to China several more times in my lifetime in order to continue this work. And I do encourage everyone who is listening and watching to consider participating in people-to-people exchanges as well, because they're incredibly important. So thank you, everyone, for listening and for inviting me.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.